Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody in Canada, Vancouver, Washington, and Woodinville, Seattle area, and also Thailand. Last night was Loi Krathong Day in Thailand, a full moon. Everybody came out and celebrated Loi Krathong Day. It's one of the Buddhist tradition activity that's going on in Thailand. Today I have brought one topic and that is in my expertise that I always practice in the area of the meditation. So the topic is the science of the meditation. It sounds very difficult, but actually, if you have been a person who always practiced, whether you get meditated or you not meditated, you will come to know one thing that actually is not different from the scientists that always doing experiment. Yeah. So the meditation I always compare as the experiment for the scientists that doing something in the laboratory. Do some research on particular assumption. So when you meditate, whenever you realize it's or not, you are actually making some assumption that the mind can be trained, so that your action can actually make a difference. And that is very common to train the mind, because the mind is what determine what action you are going to take. So you are also assuming that there is a pattern to the way that action play itself out. So certain action are going to be really skillful. In other words, they lead to the good result. Other the actions are maybe another action are not. They're going to lead to the suffering or to harm if there were no patterns. So the thing that we learn today wouldn't be maybe not applicable tomorrow if we don't have pattern. So the pattern of the meditation is one of the most important piece when you want to do the meditation, because we never know the meditation. We never know that what will be happen during the meditation. We try to learn, and it's up to any skill. Sometimes it would be a waste of time, because the rule could always change from moment to moment. That is the nature of all things, that always change in the moment. So if our action, or if your action did not make a difference, then why we are sitting here to meditate? Is that correct? So the simple fact that we are here to meditate, try to train the mind, means at least up to one level that you can accept the idea as assumption. It is like a scientist. Sometimes people believe science doesn't make assumption, that it doesn't accept anything that hasn't been proven. But that's not really the case. The scientists always work with a lot of assumption. When if you are going to run an experiment, you have to assume that something causes other thing. and that's by changing from A and you may change the B. For example, in other words, you are assuming that there are action causal connection in the world. In fact, that's why you are looking for to see the precisely what those connections are. You also assume that the way you are design and run the experiment will make a difference between whether it's good experiment or bad one. We are assuming that people, maybe you and other scientists, are responsible for their action and they can make a choice as they are design and run the experiment. That has been really a good idea to me when I start up to meditate by myself sometime, and most of the time during a new training I always perform my experiment or meditation along with my mom. Some form of the scientific knowledge like to claim that everything in the universe is predetermined by a past cause, but the activity of the science itself assume the free will, right? If people could not make a choice, there would be no sense in criticizing someone whose experiment was poorly designed or accepting the result of someone whose experiment was well designed. That should be that. If that makes sense, it makes a lot of sense to me when I start up to meditate. It would be all be arbitrary, and both sides could simply say, well, I was predetermined to do in that way. That would let them off the hook, I think. You're also assuming that some patterns are really universal, in meditation area. I was reading recently about the experiment indicating that some of constant or example that used in order to calculate the size and the history of the universe that seem to be different in one direction from what they are in another direction. That's kind of scary. The scientists like to think that the law of the physics are the same everywhere. That is really wrong assumption. But now today, all the physicists knowing very well, including the Einstein, and the law that he thought that he set up, he discovered it, and it was really true. But it has been changed a lot, because the science is always, change from time to time, from age to age, from period to period. It might be true in one period, in one age, but it will not be true forever. Same thing. This is logic can be applied to when you want to do the meditation. The result of your meditation today, it might be different from what you had yesterday. And again, what you have got in meditation today, it will be changed, and it may not be remain the same as you, even though you practice the same pattern. And that is very good experience actually. I feel like every time when you sit down and meditate, there's something new happen to you, something you really experiencing the different things. You actually explore the exploration, it should be a really good term for meditation experience. So there are actually a lot of assumption that you make simply by the fact that you act. Try to be aware of this assumption because you are going to be exploring them in the meditation. If that makes sense. So meditation actually put them to the test for particular purpose, which is to put an end to the suffering. So you need to train the mind, you need to experiment. When you are experimenting, it doesn't mean simply following some rule. That's why there are many ways to meditate, or many techniques to meditate. It means having a control and change others, or even manipulating them and seeing if the manipulation makes a difference as you measure against the control. You could sit down and watch the process for years and years, maybe and years. But if you did not do anything to the process, you would not be really know what the causal pattern are, right? So you might think that you're seeing some pattern that you cannot really check them unless you are manipulated the cause, and then you see if that manipulation make any difference in the effect. So the manipulation in the meditation is not bad at all, So because when you try to manipulate something, and then you have to wait to watch what's the result of that manipulation. That's all. So sometimes what I heard, there's some joke regarding what some of the teacher was saying about the meditation joke, like the farmer who went into a town for the first time in his life, and he was seeing the flashing neon, the flashing neon sign. It so happened that he saw the sign when the light was on. Then he walked up to it and tried to blow it out. and then he blew up, and the light happened to go out. So he assumed, that he had blow it out. Of course, there was a way you can check for that is to see if the sign come back on again, and then see if it goes out on its own without your blowing. Yeah. So if it goes out every time you blow out, So you got to check things again and again and again. Try a different approaches. That is very good simile to the meditation. So this is particularly important as you try to get the mind to settle down what's going on to work, what's not going to work. Sometimes it's, a lot of time at the beginning, when I train up the meditation with my mom, it's a lot of time, many times I call it a fluke. You are sitting here and all of a sudden everything just come together. But you have got to figure out why. That is the key. When you saw something in meditation, there's a lot of event that appear to you in front of the meditation. You have to ask why. That is the key. Otherwise, it's not going to come together again. And you won't know what to do. It's not just a matter of accepting that. Well, sometimes the mind comes together and sometimes it doesn't. The coming together, as the Buddha say once, is something you want to develop. You want to work on it. You bring it into the being. That's what is called actually the bhavana in Pali for meditation. And that is the meaning of the meditation. You experiencing something. You don't expect something, but you can even manipulate and see what you have manipulated cause any result. And then you can bring that into the being. You bring things into being. You develop them. You work on your concentration. So you see what you can do to make those moments of concentration more frequent and last longer. You have got to experiment actually. Otherwise, you won't learn anything about the process of the mind. You can see things arise and pass away, rising and passing away, and that's it. Finally, we want to see that truth of rising and falling, or rising and passing away of all things. And that is the truth. But the important thing about rising and passing is trying to notice what you did. You have to be, so that you can learn, because once you can see the moment of passing and rising and passing away, in other side, you have to notice that. Noticing what? Notice what you did to make this thing happen. I mean, rising and passing away. Particularly the unskillful mental state, What did you do? You ask yourself. And what did you do when they passed away? When they're suffering, the stress, what did you do to increase the stress? That is researching. You're doing some experimental or research. When you saw the result, you must investigate. What did you do when it was passing away? You have to check back, how did it pass away? That is the meaning of the bhavana or the meditation in the Buddhism, in the Pali term. So when there are suffering, you have to find the answer, why does it pass away? What did you do when the stress is like stop? How did you do it? What technique did you find? Then once you think you have noticed the connection between cause and effect, you have got to test again and again. That's how you redo it. You remeditate it every time until finally you will find the cause of that change. You find after you repeat the meditation from time to time, the same thing or different thing will happen. But one thing that you must do is you have to know how does it happen. There's always the connection, and that is actually the meaning of the bhavana, or even the deep meaning of the paticca or the dependent origination that happening in the time, during the time of the meditation. That's what it really is very worth to train the mind, to see the truth of rising and passing away during the meditation. So it's very important to be clear on our assumption as we meditate here. The idea that we were simply going to watch things and the object truth, the objective truth is going to appear when we are very non-interfering. That's how you can see the thing, because we are not interfere what's going on. We just a watcher. We just a viewer, not interferer, not involver. You got to call that idea into a question, because the truth may be appearing, but how are going to know what's is connected? What is connected with what? After you see the causation or even the connection, these are the basics issue for the what is called right view, the sammaทิฏฐิ that happen when you doing a meditation. You will find a connection between cause and effect, and that is the truth. That's what actually called the Dhamma, or the phenomena, หรือเราเรียกกันในภาษาไทยว่าสภาวะธรรม นั่นแหละครับคือ the truth คือความจริงที่ปรากฏขึ้นให้เราได้ชมเชยในขณะที่เราเจริญกรรมฐานหรือว่าภาวนานะครับ And you see how important the right view is. The right view is not about the inconstancy, the stress, not self, but those are the three characteristics of all the things, all the three I will call it three perception for developing the dispassion. The right view has a larger framework. It's all about the foldable truth. You're looking for the stress, trying to comprehend it until you can understand the cause. When you see the cause, you able to abandon it. The causal connection is actually what's important here in meditation, because that is what is called a Dhamma, the Sapavatam, or the phenomena. Similarly with the path, that's what I talked to my student yesterday, that the path doesn't cause the end of the suffering, but the path is take you to the destination, you know. So during the meditation, you are experiencing a lot of truth. For example, the passing, the rising and passing, birth and death, the impermanent nature, the suffering nature, and the non-self nature. That is all about the suffering. So when you are meditating, you are still suffer. But if you are done with meditation, you understood and you know the technique, you know the pattern, and that is the destination. The destination of the suffering. That means no more suffer. So once again, the path does not cause the end of the suffering, but it takes you to the end of suffering. It takes you there. So the image of the path is just like a road going to the mountain. The road doesn't cause the mountain, and the fact that you follow the road doesn't cause the mountain. But by following the road, you get there. Is that right? That is a connection between the action and the point where it leads you. So we assume that that's the pattern. There is a pattern here. Otherwise, what the Buddha taught for 2600 years ago wouldn't be relevant anymore. Things could change at any time, but if there's going to be a path to the end of the suffering that people can teach to one another, we have to assume that there is a pattern. Then it's based on that assumption that we experiment on, that we have been experimenting. So this is what called the scientific about the meditation. We have some of the same assumption that the scientists bring into the experiment, that you have a free will. So the ability to choose how you're going to design your experiment when you want to do, that you have to change things in order to learn about the pattern. Otherwise, you can go through life thinking that the neon sign are going to stay lit until you blow on them, just because one neon sign happened to go out the one time you blow on it. That is very good simile of maybe Ajahn used to read the book of Ajahn Fun, the forest monk in Thailand. So you have to try again and again and even again to see what does it work and what it doesn't work, what connected to what, and that's where insight arises, and that is how your insight arises, the wisdom. And the skill in the meditation come from learning how to anticipate when something is happening that will be skillful or not. So if it's not, then what else is going on to do in order to deflect it? If it is skillful, what are you going to do to make sure it really does give its result, and it keep on giving the result? The only way that we can anticipate this kind of thing is by going over them again and again. That is only thing that we can see the same thing or a different thing. Excuse me. You may have to change the pattern of the meditation in order to see the different result. Excuse me. So what we try to do is we try to limit the number of the variables here. We are sitting here with our eye closed, focus on the breath. Well, the mind is going to do a lot of different things during the meditation. When we are focusing just on the breath, you have a lot of choice to decide what to do. You can change the way you breathe. You can change the way you even focus, which the aspect of the process you're going to focus on it. That is about the scope of the meditation. Once the Buddha talked about the four frames of the reference in order to establishing the mindfulness, body, feeling, mind, and the mental qualities of what we call it Dhamma. All these are taking in and of themselves. It's not that they involve doing for different kinds of the meditation exercise. You actually stay with the breath, simply staying with the breath, which is an aspect of the body. Then if you are having a trouble staying with the breath, you look at what other issue might be involved. Is there something wrong with the feeling that you are creating with the breath? Can you change that feeling? The Buddha recommend the breathing is a way that gives rise to a rapture or a pleasure, or inภาษา Bali, in Pali we call it piti. Do you know how to do that? That's one aspect of staying with the breath. But if it is connect with the feeling, you can know that what is the now you can see thing that there is a connection between your mind and your breath or the body, and that's how you feel happy or unhappy in meditation about your breath. You see, that is one learning that you have got, and that is true. Or you may take a look at the mind state that you are bringing to the meditation. Sometimes the mind is very sluggish. Sometimes it's really down, depressed. And you need to do something with it in order to give more energy. Is that right? In order to gladden the mind, as the Buddha say, Otherwise, I mean, other time you may experience a different thing. The mind is sometimes bouncing all around like a ping pong ball. When that is the case, what can you do to get it to settle down? Now you have a new experience of make your mind settle down. If it is really burdened by particular assumption, if it is burdened by particular thought, then you can identify what can you do to get it out from under the burden that is using the mind as your frame of reference. You are still there with the breath, but you are looking at the problem from different angles. The angle of how the breath is related to the mind, the connection. You see one special angle, you saw the connection between your breath and your mind. Finally, there are dhammas, the mental, the qualities. This frame of the reference give the guidance for when you will see something keep pulling you away. How can you deal with this? How can you deal with it effectively so that you do not keep on being distracted by it, by the pulling? You can check up what quality do you need to let it go. For example, the anchor that's trying to pull you down and down you in the meditation. And then that's how you learn, let go. What quality do you need to develop in order to, maybe you want to stay with that, or you want that quality to stay with you? And that's how you learn how to develop instead of let go. That is about the quality of the mind, or the mental qualities, or the dhammas. So all of these four foundation, or the four different frame of the reference, deal with the different aspect of the problem of how you stay along with the breath at all time during the meditation. So the skill here is a matter of learning to read the situation, to understand the situation, to notice with the aspect you have to focus on. So this come with the practice, and it come with the experimenting, or tweaking things. There's one Western scholar and the meditators. His name is Kurt Vonnegut, who compare the scientists to the little kid people who still like to play even as they grow up. And most of the famous scientists were like that. They would play with the idea, they would play with the possibilities. That's how they discover things that other people had not discovered before. See, this is the one of the Western scholar used to really compare the meditation as the science, or doing the experiment in the laboratory of the scientists. And that is very good comparison, and give me a really very good approach. That when I mean, even give me and show me a new approach that I can learn from what he did say. The science is not a body of the knowledge, actually. It is just one approach with the assumption. Same way, and meditation is the same. Meditation, you know. It's not a knowledge. The meditation is not a knowledge. But it's a one approach, one way, one method that will take us to the destination. For example, the end of the suffering. And that's why we can learn, we even can read a lot of meditation book, or you can learn from a lot of meditation teacher that teaching even in the canon, in the Tripitaka. You could read all the teaching from many ajahn or master or the meditation teacher, and you will find a lot of different approach, different way to meditate. The thing is that you must be able to repeat them with your own patience, your own energy, and then you will see, and then you will find for yourself that you found for yourself that you are having one approach that fit you. But of course, you won't be able to get awakened if you have got the wrong approach. That is confirmed. So, what does lead you to awakening is taking the Buddha approach simply. And that's why I always follow. I mean, I learn many approaches how to meditate. But then one approach that I consider myself as one of the success meditators, that I follow the pathway of the Buddha, the Buddha's approach, which was the it was the experimental approach that is again based on the assumption that you can learn from changing your action. That actually, to assumption one, you can change your action to you are these are the there are patterns that can be learned in a way. And this is what makes meditation a science. The clearer you are about the fact that approach, this experimental approach is going to give you a knowledge. Yeah. So the meditation is not the body of the knowledge, but the approach. When you starting sitting meditation, and that is become an approach that will give you a knowledge. And that's when a knowledge really will make a huge difference in your mind, in your life even. And you will find a really wonderful entire relationship to the space and time. And that is very radical. So, be willing to call something of your assumption into the question, especially those that give in the way of the quest for the end of the suffering. And give yourself a chance to try, to experiment it, to try it. And that's how you will see that what approach work, what going on that will give you a knowledge, even a new knowledge that you have not experienced in the past. It's always show you something. The meditation is always show you something new. What you saw in the meditation yesterday may be different when you do the same thing even today, because the truth is slowly become an event for you, or slowly appear when you putting more energy, when you apply the approach, a different approach, during you put learning about or putting about the approach, or even the energy. Every time you put more and more, you experiencing always the different, the news event. It's always changing, even though from time to time, from moment to moment of your meditation. So you actually allow yourself in the exploration of your life. You explore the new things every time when you meditate. That's how you learn new things for your life. And that's how you are like a scientist when you do a meditation. So the only different thing between the science and the meditation is that what you going to see, that I can guarantee, or what you already saw in the meditation, is a unchangeable truth. But if you are a scientist, you performing an experiment with one assumption, and then you will be able to see the result of your experiment that can always change. So what I mean to say is that the scientific is always changing, but the result of the meditation that is the truth that will never change. Because the truth that never change is the truth of the nature, and it's true forever. For example, the anicca, dukkha, anatta, the cause and effect, rising and falling of all things. This pattern is never changed. This feature of all being is not changed. But the result of the scientific experiment will change from time to time. For example, the medication is always changing. For example, right now, one vaccination may work today. The same vaccine may not work tomorrow. because the scientific is not the truth. The scientific is always changing from time to time. But the truth that the Buddha discovered, right, anicca, dukkha, anatta, this truth will never change. And it is because it's a natural truth. And it is more than universal truth, will never change. And this truth, you can see, it's become a big event during a meditation. And that should be the end of my talk today. I really thank you very much for everyone who watching this program. And we try to find out some good topics for you in the future. We'll see you again next Saturday morning. Thank you. And thanks Ajahn Thawachai to make this program happen and continue this program for you. It's going to become a really constructive knowledge in the Dhamma of the Buddha. Thank you and goodbye. I will pass this back to Ajahn Thawachai, and then we come back to see you again with the new topics next Saturday.